Well, hello and welcome to CNBC Africa's budget panel discussion. I am Fifi Peters and you are tuned into the segment that is focused on the business aspects of Tito Mboweni's budget speech. The speech highlighted that state-owned companies, public entities and the private sector's boards and executive management compensation and benefits should be reduced. The finance minister also spoke on government and the private sector working together to successfully implement the infrastructure fund. And joining me in the studio to unpack all of this is Tashmia Ismail-Saville, who is the CEO of the Youth Employment Service, and also Kganki Matabane, the CEO of the Black Business Council. Thanks so much for your time to the both of you. Tash, I'm going to begin with you because you got a mention in the the midterm policy statement that was announced by the government. The president saying that you guys are doing well so far. A lot of support has been given on a national scale to help you essentially alleviate youth unemployment. But you do tell us the numbers. How have you progressed so far this year?
So we're over 27,000 jobs, 27,354 to be precise. If we turn that into a salaries number in the 10 months, that's about 1.3 billion rand going directly into the wallets of youth, which we know have a big multiplier effect. The presidency does support us in terms of calling on all companies to make employment opportunities happen. But I must stress that we are business-led, so there's no funding that comes from government. What we can do is give companies who invest in youth jobs levels up on the BEE scorecard, well, 1 level up, or 2 if they double the target. And of course, there's the employment tax incentive, which is applicable to any business across South Africa employing black youth between 18 and 29.
So this is 27,000 plus over what time period?
10 months.
10 months.
Yes, it's a very high impact program, and we're calling on business to help us drive that number even higher. We need it.
All right, so business needs to be confident to do that. And Kganki, the question to you is, did this budget move you enough to be confident to do more business with South Africa's economy?
Thank you very much, Fifi. I think firstly you must understand that the minister was operating on a very tight and not so much conducive environment. The unemployment figures were just released this week. They are growing, poverty is growing, inequality is growing. So the minister didn't have any room to maneuver. So he's tried his best, but there are components that maybe he could have done better. For example, in any environment or any economy, for you to create jobs, you need to support small business. The minister didn't say much about supporting small businesses. He touched on what we call the public procurement bill, that we as Black Business Council have been calling for that so that we can replace the triple PFA, because we think that will support small business and that will create jobs. But the minister didn't give any time frame as to when the public procurement bill is going to go to cabinet. And we were a bit disappointed with that, because with that it will improve procurement to small businesses, and that for us we think it will create jobs.
Because we've been looking at what the market has been doing and how the market has been reacting to this budget, and it's the midterm budget, and it's not positive at all. And so far the commentary is that, you know, there's no way that Moodys can't take a tougher hand on South Africa, and that for me just means that we could possibly be seeing numbers whereby we see business confidence currently at around 20-year lows deteriorate even further. Is that the case, Kganki?
I think the biggest challenge of government over the years is implementation. Some of these plans that have been mentioned today have been mentioned in Feb, but not much has been implemented. To give you an example, we're talking about reforming SOCs, state-owned enterprises, but the major SOCs have got acting CEOs. There's no way you're going to improve decision-making in SOCs if people are on an acting capacity. To give you an example, ESCOM is one of them, Transnet, SAA, Road Accident Fund, Land Bank, the list goes on and on. So you cannot, in an environment where people are acting, expect people to take decisions that are going to make serious and efficient improvement. So for us, I don't understand what stops government from filling those positions.
And with the right people.
Yeah, obviously with the right people. But I'm a bit worried when people are saying we must not pay incentive bonuses and all those things, because then it means government is going to struggle to attract the right people. So,
but although their wage bill is already quite high, if you looked at the 66% increase in their wage bill versus flat in the private sector, I think the salaries there are quite good. But I want to agree with the earlier point around implementation. That's one. But the minister opened by talking about shaking the baobab tree, thinking out of the box, doing things differently. But I don't see a huge amount of evidence of that happening on government side. So a lot of this is the same narratives about what do we do with the SOEs, where are the great small business plans? We know that for young unemployed people, the most likely place for them to get their first job is in a small business. My first job was there, my husband's first job was there, my sister's first job was in a small business. So growing those small businesses that are closer to communities where unemployed youth are. So these might be some of the more innovative mechanisms, but we seem to have the same old people with the same old ideas on how we're going to drive growth and change sentiment. We've got to change it at a grassroots level, and that means trying to do something a little more creative.
And does this budget meet the creativity check, or are we looking at a situation whereby, you know, the future is looking very bleak for these small businesses that you're talking about?
I mean, my sense of it is I don't see anything dramatically new. When Yes got a mention, what was exciting is the word innovation was put next to the Yes name, which we're thrilled about, because we really do believe that we are pushing a 4IR agenda, and we're pushing it into communities where youth can really use technology to start to climb up this economic ladder. And, you know, those are the sorts of things. Bring technologies and innovation into the hearts of communities through local economic development plans like township revitalization. And that, to me, is where some of the innovation can sit.
I mean, in terms of new stuff, what we did get is today we published version 2 of the document. And this is in reference to the Yes, or document coming out of Yes at all or not.
No,
so there's no new document that you guys are publishing?
No.
No new plan?
Well,
no
there's a practice note resubmission, but that is just clarifications to make it easier for companies to understand how the BEE rules of the game work. So hopefully that comes out, and we can, you know, we're saying to business, please help us drive these numbers higher. If you have the privilege of creating even one job, please work and do that. And the clearer the rules of the game are around BEE, the easier it is for us to get businesses to take youth up.
What are businesses that haven't said yes yet?
You want me to name and shame?
Saying, no, not even who, but maybe name their concerns, highlight their concerns, and talk to me about whether you see that changing, improving, or getting worse after this budget policy statement that we've just read.
I mean, the same line that you get on the businesses that aren't doing it yet. Look, a lot of them, you get people who are late adopters. Now that they're seeing the over 27,000 number, it's like, oh, this thing works. Maybe we should be part of it. So we are seeing that momentum starting to build. Anything new, you have to wait for that momentum to build. But to answer your question, a lot of people say, oh, we are doing so much. We're already doing so much. And this is where we can't just wait on government to be doing things. You know, the private sector does need to come to the party. And I'm not just talking about the big same companies that we talk about. I'm talking about medium-sized businesses, small-sized businesses. You've got to grow your own communities. You've got to grow opportunities for young people. You know, if you look at employment and GDP growth in South Africa, they're decoupled. GDP growth doesn't mean that we create jobs for young people, particularly unskilled and semi-skilled youth. So if we don't have actual strategies and plans to drive these young people into work opportunities, it's not something that's going to happen on its own just as a consequence of growth. And business has to play a big part in creating those pathways for youth into the economy. The best thing is just get young people into work, let them start earning an income, and that is how we reduce inequality.
Kganki, in terms of black business and the expected downgrade or change in outlook from Moodys, which will ultimately make doing business in South Africa a lot costlier. As black business, are you prepared for this case scenario? Because ultimately, I mean, when we're talking about the fact that it's more expensive to attract capital into this country, I see the efforts that we are trying to make via transformation and breaking down existing oligopolies or monopolies, sort of taking the back burner.
Yeah, we really hope we're never going to be downgraded because that will affect a lot of businesses. As we're sitting now, our members are struggling to access funding. So you can imagine now when the funding becomes expensive, they're going to be worst affected. So we really hope that the speech that was presented today will go a long way in ensuring that doesn't happen. Just touching on the few elements of the speech, the wage bill, I think going back to my question, I'm talking about attracting qualified professionals to turn around the SOCs. You need people who can go there and work there. But if you are not rewarding them appropriately, they won't go there. They'll choose to go to the private sector. But we agree with the minister that the wage bill needs to be reduced. And I think one thing that we like to fly, for example, to fly to Durban or to fly to Cape Town on business class, which is double the cost of an economy class, does not necessarily make sense.
But let's hope they don't book out the whole row. Do you know what I mean? It's business class sitting next to ordinary folk like me. Do you know what I mean? But I just this panel, we were also supposed to reflect on NHI, and I imagine that there are opportunities to create jobs in the health space. Not much was said about NHI, just the fact that the NHI proposal is on the table and government is looking to is in discussions about that. Just your view on our plan for rolling out national health coverage for all, what the private sector is saying and what they're doing in the health space to jump on board to say yes.
Mm-hmm. Look, I mean, I understand concerns from both sides. From government side, health we've just been through the health system. My husband's broken his arm. And, every day is a gratitude that we were able to afford private healthcare and get that. And we know that for people who had the same accident, the outcomes could have been fatal. So there is an imbalance and inequality across every sector, including health, is a major problem. However, the comment you made about implementation, I think this is what scares everyone, is there's a plan for NHI and the implementation ability of the state to get this right is really what people are very concerned about. And I'm going to say that across the board, in the SOEs, in education, we actually have got the money, but we're spending it really badly. I want to give you an example of this number. We don't look at the big numbers. The cost of an unemployed youth, and I'll always bring it back to employment because for me this really is the big elephant in the room. If we don't address this, we're on our knees. Mm-hmm. It costs 1.2 million over a lifetime, and this is quite an undercosted number for an unemployed person. If you take 6.7 million unemployed people, and this is not the expanded definition, so this isn't even the real number, and you multiply that out, we're talking about a cost of 7.9 trillion cost to the state. And lifetime unemployment in South Africa is not a rare thing, it is a very common thing. Whereas the cost of getting young people into this 1 year yes job now, for all of these unemployed youth, would be 305 billion. So, we don't get innovative and think about the long-term costs of things. How do we attract the best people into these implementation and execution roles at state level so that they can start to do this kind of number and get creative about some of those solutions? Because there are solutions. Today, technology allows us to really leapfrog. Something like primary health care. If we've got Yes Youth in jobs in Mpumalanga, rural Mpumalanga, that are sponsored by corporates that go door to door and do primary health care. The dramatic impact at community level of starting with primary health care on healthcare costs later down the line when someone gets a chronic disease from it, like hypertension or diabetes. Can we start early? Can we address these problems when they're less expensive to address? But that you need new people, you need sharp people, you need to attract the best talent into these execution roles.
But in terms of attracting that best talent, Kganki, going back to your point to say that, if we do freeze some of the other benefits and the incentives of getting guys into some of the acting roles that you're talking about at state-owned enterprises, that I can get a better pay package in the private sector. My question to you is where does country duty step in? Because right now we are in a crisis. And also, what is the opportunity cost of you getting getting an incentive and getting a benefit, because that's diverting money away from a school that needs to be built, hospitals, or road infrastructure that needs to be put in place.
Yeah, I think that is not necessarily true.
Okay.
Because if you run the company very well, efficiently, even if you get your incentive bonus, but that is linked to you achieving certain objectives, you may make a serious saving that can be taken back to service delivery.
But if you're running a profitable company, right now these entities, many of them are not.
Hence we are saying, let's bring the best out of us. Let's put our best foot forward when we hire these CEOs who are going to run and turn around these companies. Because if you don't take the best and put the best there, we are going to be where we are. So if you want to get to a situation where even if you give these SOCs loans, they will be able to pay back that loan, you need them to be run by the best. But if you give a loan to an SOC run by a mediocre person, they run it down, government is still going to lose. So for me, let's put the best people. Let's put the best people forward. Let them do the best job. Let's reward them appropriately, and then we're going to save a lot, because
I mean,
we are not going to be, for us to get out of this mode of always bailing out companies. You need them to be run by the best.
And one could argue, I don't know their credentials well enough to speak for them, but the man who was put to try to turn around SAA was a private sector man who had earned his stripes in the private sector and was considered the best. Similarly, the man who was put in the role of CEO of Eskom, again. But then there was political influence, because, you know, these best take tough decisions. And if you're going to turn around loss-making entities, you need to take tough decisions. So the expectation the expectation that government will actually take a step back and let the best do what they need to do. How confident are you in that will happen?
I think you need to put the best person there, but you need the person to have a proper board that will support them. Look at Telkom. Telkom will never have achieved what they've achieved if Sipho was not there, but also if the chairperson and the board was not supportive of him.
But so also if there wasn't a privatization element.
That's a great example of taking a turnaround, of letting someone and a board do what they needed to do. But you're right, you have to let them do what they need to do.
You're saying that we should partially privatize some of those SOEs, because that's the Telkom example.
But it's not necessarily privatized, because the
partially.
Private investors hold a tiny minority. So the majority of the decisions.
I think it's the other way around. But anyway, let's talk when we have the facts. I want to talk to you about, you know, in your efforts to go forward as Yes. I'm sure you would have seen the very generous donation coming out of the Motsepe Foundation, along with the 33 largest religious based groups. Their efforts also to do the same thing. 100 million rand fund that's aimed at job creation. They're also calling on the private sector to step in and donate, and not small amounts of money. But I want to talk to you about how that foundation, what that means for your efforts going forward.
I mean, if we could tap into it, that would be excellent. If we could help it to, so Yes has got a dual strategy. One is corporates create these job opportunities. They can place those jobs inside of the corporate, or they can place them through our partners at community level. This is how we can do the primary healthcare program, going door to door. Those are in rural and Mpumalanga. It's via a set of partners on a platform that we've created. There's another side to Yes, which is what we call Yes Hubs. These are nodes. They are situated in townships, peri-urban and rural areas. We're going to be doing many of these across the country. We've got a flagship one up in Tembisa and another 2 coming up, Alex, and in Mpumalanga near Bushbuck Ridge. The idea here is to take technologies, to take best practice principles, to drive that innovation and training into the heart of a community where a young mother can walk to the facility and doesn't have to leave her child or be expected to leave her child to try to access training or work. And that is supposed to be the way that we seed small businesses and opportunities and access to markets in the heart of high unemployment communities. So, you know, funds like this are so important to be able to take that kind of idea and really scale it. That we can work in partnership where we've, you know, these hubs have got funding from multiple partners. Some are private sector, some are NGO donors, and pool that to be able to benefit a community, but with a really clear strategic plan. South Korea has got creative councils where they use that for regional innovation systems. Big industry players come in, bring that technology to a community, so the SMEs there are learning off the best technologies that are market relevant, not always on the tail end of things. If we don't use that type of funding to uplift communities with fishing rods, the high-tech fishing rods that are out there today, we're going to constantly leave them behind. We can't expect GDP to grow. You started out reading some of the GDP numbers. We can't expect it to grow if we've left 3/4 of the population behind.
Sure.
And the way to bring them up is to give them access to the technologies and funds like this. Wow, if we could get, let's open the conversation up right now, if they're listening. We really would love to be able to, not just from them, but through a whole lot of funders, be able to get money going right down to where beneficiaries are.
For sure, for sure. Let's hope they're listening. It's got to be online. If they're not, we'll tag them. And just finally, I mean, in closing, this budget, we've seen the numbers as we walk away, and we're walking and we're planning into South Africa in the very short to medium term as the Black Business Council body. What are those plans looking like?
Yeah, I think the situation of the debt ratio that we have is very much worrying. It's unsustainable for the country. But we also need to sort out Eskom. If we don't sort out Eskom, the country may just go down with it. So for us, in the next 2-3 months, I think the focus should be how do we sort out Eskom to an extent that it does not weigh down the economy with it.
Sure.
And that, I think, at least will also then deal with the issues of the investors. And at least next week, there's an investment conference. Hopefully that will also give confidence that the country is ready for investment.
Really? Your walkaways?
Eskom can bring us down, or we can say, how do we do renewable energy sources? How do we open up all of the legislation, whatever papers need to be published, amendments to laws that need to be published, to allow us to get energy from other sources? So my walkaway is, let's not try the same square peg in a round hole. Let's not try this. It's the definition of insanity, and I know that is really overused, but sometimes I do think we are going down the insanity path. We are doing the same things over and over, and can we try something new and different? Rather than saying Eskom will take us down, can we say, how do renewables pick us up?
Sure.
And always to pivot around the alternate way of shaking the baobab tree.
Wow, you and the minister have something in common, very clearly. That is where we leave it for now. Thanks to my panelists, Tashmia Ismail-Saville, the CEO of the Youth Employment Service, and Kganki Matabane, the CEO of the Black Business Council.